Okay, folks, now that we have an actual animation created, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we can export this as a video. Um, it is possible to export this as a graphic that can be displayed in a web browser, but we're going to talk about that in a future exercise. So I think what I'll do now is I'll talk about exporting this as a video. So the way to go about doing this is to say File, Export, and then render video. Okay, now when you do that, you're going to get the following dialog box, and there's some settings here that you have to think about. For example, your file name. I'll call mine ball.mpeg4, and I'm just going to put this on my desktop like it is, okay? And these are the settings for the actual video, okay? Now you see there's a lot of them. Probably the most standard setting is an MPEG-4, and that would be the H.264 codec. You have the size of your document, okay? Your frame rate should be 30 frames per second unless you're doing something different, like maybe higher definition video or something along those lines. And then essentially when you're ready, you say render. Now some videos can take a little longer to render than others. Okay, this one happened to go pretty quickly. And I see here on my desktop I have this, so I'm going to just open this with QuickTime really quick. Here it is. And you'll see there's my file. Oops, sorry about that. You'll see here's my file. And if I say play, you'll see there's my animation, right? Pretty straightforward. Okay, now that's an MPEG-4. I can do anything that I can do with any other video with that file. Now that's one approach you could take here. Another approach is that you can actually bring video into Photoshop and then do some Photoshop effects on it. So for example, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say File. I'm going to create a new file first of all. Let me get back into Photoshop. So I'll say File New, right? And we'll make this a little bit bigger. So we'll make this like an 8 by 8 inch file. Okay, like so. And for now I'm just going to minimize my timeline. Okay, and basically what I have here is a blank canvas, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import a video file that we're going to use in Photoshop. So to import a video file, what you have to do is you have to go under the layers menu and create a new video layer. Okay, so when you do this, you have a choice: a new video layer from a file or a blank video layer. I'm going to create a new video layer from a file. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I believe I have a couple things here on my desktop to work with. I'm going to try to do this file here called bigexplosion.movie. Right, so I'll open that, and you'll see it's going to bring in my video here right on my dialog box, and that video is now going to be put in as a movie, right? Now once you get a video in here, your timeline is going to look a little different. Okay, before we were dealing with an animation timeline. And if you remember when we were doing the animation and we brought this in, it asked us if we want to create a frame-based animation or a video-based timeline. And I said, make sure the first time you choose the frame-based and then press the button. In this case, this is a video timeline that we're looking at. And it's a little bit different, okay? So for example, I can use my tools to move this if I chose to, right? So if I select this layer and then I move this video down to, let's say, there, and I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so we have space. Right, so there's my video now, right? Basically, I can use any of the tools I want, but what I'm going to try to demonstrate here first is I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to show you that with video, you could treat it like it's any other type of content, right? So for example, if I go in here with my elliptical marquee tool and I kind of just make a selection on here, circle selection. I don't know, maybe move that over so it's centered like so, right? And then let's suppose I want to put convert this to a mask, right? So it only showed the video as a circle. I could easily go here and hit mask, boom, and now you'll see there's my video. Now this may not play in Photoshop directly, right? If I hit play, you see how it just shows that it's blank? Okay, but if I export that, sorry, that one has some sound on it. So I'm just going to pause and turn the sound down on that so you don't have to hear it. Oh, there it is. It's actually pretty loud. So, like I said, basically this video doesn't show up, but it does actually, if you pause it at a certain spot, it shows where you are in your timeline, okay? So now, with that being said, I can do all types of things to this, okay? So, for example, I can go in and let's say I wanted to edit this out, right? So you'll see here, I have a series of different tools at my disposal, okay? I can kind of set pins and cut different pieces of this out. So let's suppose that part that I'm looking at right here where the explosion starts, I didn't want, right? I want to start right there. Now I've cut the timeline, right? So now I can go in and I can actually take that piece right there and just blow it away, right? So there I can trim the video, right? So let's say at the end here, maybe I didn't want this to go back down to nothingness, like so. Okay, right, so maybe I could trim it right there, right, if I go in with my trim tool, right, so now you see I just cut that one in, okay? Now, that's one part of this, okay, and then you can also move these between, like I'm about to do right here. That's one aspect, and bring them all back together, okay? So that's one thing. You can also do things like put transitions in, okay? So if I want to go from one piece to the other, you can also do things like resolution. You can crank it up, slow it down, what have you, okay? But what I'd like to show you here really quickly, and as you can see, every time you do that, each one of these new guys is a new layer object, right? That can be manipulated in a variety of different ways, okay? So what I'm going to do, and you see I would automatically created a video group for each one of these, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blow these three away, like so. I'm going to say yes, okay? And I'm going to bring back that video. I'm going to blow away the whole group as well, okay? And I'm going to say layer, new video layer from file. I'm going to choose my big explosion again. Okay, so there's my video. Now what I'm going to do with this video is I am going to scale it, right? So I'm going to say edit, transform, scale. Okay, so this means this is something that in Photoshop that you have to do a conversion on and make it into a smart object, right? So now once I made this a smart object, now I can actually scale it as I see fit, right? And I'll even stretch this down, okay? So there's my video. Okay, so now that I scaled the video and converted it to a smart object, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a great tool here, which is the text tool. Now, the text tool is pretty straightforward. We haven't really formally talked about it, but essentially it works pretty straightforward, is that you just put text on the screen. You have all the options for the text up on top here. But I'm going to use an option associated with this what's called the type mask tool. And what that does is it actually makes a mask of text on the screen. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my file size a little bit bigger. So I'll make this like 250 points. Okay. And that being said, I'm going to go and put my cursor on the screen here. And then I'm just going to type the word fire with an exclamation point. Okay. Maybe I'll move that a little bit around, like so. Let's see if you see, you got to be careful because it's going to try to move it out. Okay, so that's my mask there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply a mask to that, like so. Okay, so now what that does is it makes my text into the masked object. Okay, now that being said, if I take a look at this, let's see what we come up with here. Let me see if I can turn this down and make sure that we don't hear anything from the explosion, because that could be a little daunting here. So let's try to turn that down somewhat and hit play on that. Okay, so you can see how the fire is now inside the text, right? Okay, sorry about the explosion sound there, but it's a little difficult to hide. Okay, now if we actually even went in here on our background, double click that. Sorry, not double clicked it, just converted it and maybe made the background color be blank by using our paint bucket tool. Now, if we give that a play here, let's play that. Okay, now you're not going to see that as much, okay, with the black background. I thought I did. Didn't I do the background black? Let's just stop that real quick. Oh, I see what I did. I didn't do it at the beginning, okay? You got to do it at the beginning of the timeline, okay? So now let's go in there on my background layer here. Or even easier, right? I can just kind of make that be bigger, like so, right? Let's try that. Give it a play. There we go. That's what we're talking about, right? Okay, that's a great effect that you could easily use here, right? So if I said now, let's just stop that, and I said File, Export, right? And I'll render video. We'll keep all the same settings we had before, but this time we'll call this Explosion, right? And I'm going to say that to my desktop, and I'll do render. Now, it might take a minute or two to render this because it's a little bit more of an evolved effect, okay? But really, by using these features in Photoshop, you can create some pretty interesting effects, okay? That was pretty quick. All right, so let me see now if I can just launch this in QuickTime. There it is right there. Okay, so now if I hit play on that, let me turn the sound down so I don't freak people out. There you go. Quite an interesting effect, okay? Now the combination of taking video and its ability to create smart objects and apply all the powers in Photoshop really make for a very powerful special effects engine that's not too not too hard to use, that's available to you in Photoshop. Okay, thank you.